Well, it happened. It happened. And I'm going to be honest, I'm surprised that it happened. I didn't expect this to actually go through in this window. I thought Newcastle was more petty, but there should be happiness everywhere. I realize there is a lot of bitterness, right? If you're a Newcastle fan in particular, you're upset. You had this amazing striker. Now all of a sudden he's gone. But there should be happiness for everybody involved. I'll get to that later, though, because I did not expect this to happen, mainly because Newcastle would have to admit defeat. I'm impressed. I am impressed, right? I did not expect the powers that be, whatever that phrase actually is, the Saudi ownership. I did not expect them to be able to look at this situation and realize that what they just did was the smartest thing they could have possibly done. I thought that they were going to stand on principle. I thought that they were going to try to send a message. And instead, they ended up getting a record fee, which is what they should have gotten for Alexander Isac, who is a prototypical center forward entering the prime of his career, right? And it has got to be particularly painful for them when the realization came about that he only wanted to go to one of their main title rivals. That it's hard. It's very hard to run a club and realize that the best thing you can do in this situation is exactly what they did, because it's not what they wanted to do. But Newcastle has now gotten everything out of this they could have possibly gotten. They had almost no dead time on wage in the league because, analytically speaking, you don't want to have a bunch of wage under FFP used up on a guy who's not helping you perform in matches. So there was not a lot of dead time there. And now they've really boosted their accounts and their FFP. Well, look, they don't care about the damn accounts. They got more money. They're richer than Croesus, right? They got more money than anybody. The FFP balance has now been boosted very significantly. And I would expect Newcastle to be setting up a gigantic move in January. And they now have a couple of months to try and put it together. Why would they need to do it in January? Because the FFP kind of updates yearly, and you want to use this money that you've made from this sale and weaponize it and launch it back with a bazooka to go grab somebody really expensive. Now, they did go grab Yohan Wissa, which is a good pickup. I mean, you're trading in a very fast car for a kind of fast car, right? And that's not the position that Newcastle wants to be in. I think they overspent for him, right? 55 million pounds is definitely not a deal that I would have expected Yohan Wissa to go for. If you told me 35 to 40, that would have made more sense. You're looking at $75 million for Yohan Wissa. Not exactly a young spry chicken, not somebody that, is regarded in footballing circles as the type of guy that can play striker on a Champions League regular type team in the Premier League. Maybe surrounded with the right supporting cast, they believe he can take that next half step to being that type of guy and then maybe try and inspire some surprising league championship run. I don't freaking see that. Right, and that is a bit of a waste of the money that they ended up getting, over $170 million, by the way, of which there is still a ton sitting around. Let's not pretend like they don't still have. I'm talking earlier, some people are going to come in and be like, well, they signed Wissa. They still have a ton of money and ammunition to set up a move in January to reassert their intent, to reestablish themselves as the type of team that's going to be going after everything. But you should also be happy if you're Liverpool, because you got the guy. And to a certain extent, in the Prem, money is fake. These teams make so much damn money. There are so many assets on Liverpool. Obviously, they balance this out with a loan to buy of Harvey Elliott, which means they're going to get a nice little payment. They're going to cover Harvey Elliott's wage, and they're getting a nice little payment. I think 35, 40 million pounds out of the Harvey Elliott move. But teams like Liverpool, if you ever do want to liquidate, if you ever do need cash, they have ammunition, right? This isn't Manchester United where you're stuck with big contracts on players that nobody wants. There are players that are on Liverpool that other teams want. And so they've gone out and they've thrown a ridiculous... It's teams in the Prem waking up and realizing, right? They're sitting here and probably watching Chelsea and whatever spend $1 billion and going, man, if we sell enough players and we, budget this right, right contracts, right accounting practices, we can do this too. Because Liverpool's bringing in a hell of a lot more money than Chelsea is, just based off competition success alone, but then you amplify that out to sponsorships and everything else. I get, if you're a Liverpool fan, you're not used to the nauseating, nosebleed-inducing amount of spending that other clubs have been doing for a while, but that you just did. But you should do this. You should. This is like if you're playing Football Manager and you transition to the next phase of life, right? You're playing Football Manager and then all of a sudden you are now the big bad bully. You've got all the money. You can go out and get the star forward in his prime. You can go out and get the rising superstar midfielder in Flo Wirtz, right? You can go get these guys. And these, unlike the people that Manchester United, as an example, but they're not the only one guilty of this, unlike those types of teams that are buying not proven things, these guys are very proven. Florian Wirtz is one of the best players on the only unbeaten team in German history. He's still young. Alexander Isak has spent the better part of a decade, not the better part of a decade, but almost half a decade just putting up numbers in the Premier League. I think it is the better part of a decade, actually. It's a great phrase, so we'll stick that close to it. I don't know. You get the fucking idea. It's been years upon years of solid, improving production from somebody who is able to affect multiple different aspects of the game, at the same time hurting one of your primary rivals for European places, hurting one of the teams that is building itself to be capable to take points off of you. This is something that people overlook in transfers. They shouldn't. Another reason to be happy for Liverpool is you have now taken a baseball bat and whacked Newcastle on the knee with it. Sure, you'd rather whack Arsenal, Manchester City, right? There's a couple teams that would be considered a bigger threat than Newcastle, but it's not like Newcastle was no threat at all, right? Newcastle is a team that is built and is building itself to be able to contend with everybody else. And now they are going to be worse. If they had been able to keep Isac for the next 3 or 4 years, they would have been more dangerous. That's just obvious. That's a duh situation. And Liverpool's taken a team that won the league last year and improved it significantly. All of a sudden, those concerns of, well, Mo Salah and Virgil van Dijk are kind of aging out, and, your Andy Robertsons of the world, and then Trent's gone. They got the new guys here. The new bastion is here. I mean, Manchester City was the team that owned the league, and it's amazing how quickly it can happen, and then all of a sudden you just don't own the league anymore. But Liverpool is setting itself up to continue the Jurgen Klopp era in a way that the Sir Alex Ferguson era, in a way that the Arsene Wenger era, in a way that those eras were not continued. Right? There was this big drop and then back. Liverpool is showing a great roadmap for how to not let that happen. They're laying out an excellent roadmap to how to make sure that you can survive a difficult coaching change. The Manchester City, who I would imagine would be kind of next in line in that process whenever Pep Guardiola stresses himself out of the job. I don't know if that's next year or 20 years from now, to be perfectly honest with you. Manchester City is going to want to try and follow this same roadmap. What is that roadmap exactly? I have no idea. Something along the lines of making sure you have enough veterans in the locker room to create continuity, right? And going and getting more talented players. Doesn't seem like a bad move. But this is, at its core, just a surprise. And I'm guessing that Newcastle and Liverpool, and by extension Alexander Isak, knew a lot more about this than we did, than anybody did. I mean, Fabrizio Romano did not know about this until right as it was happening. This was not a transfer that was spoiled way out, right? He was in the mode where he was just retweeting, Isac still only wants Liverpool. No updates at this time, right? He would just tweet that every day just for impressions about Isac. I would assume they knew about this. I would assume Liverpool was essentially creeping up its offer, trying to figure out how high it would have to go in order to make Newcastle comfortable in making this sale. Because the whole point at the end of the day is that Newcastle would only want to do this if they got such an unbelievable amount of money. It would make them want to swallow their pride because it would give them so much ammunition under FFP to go out and improve their team, right? Because to be a win-win, that's what it had to be. And this is a win-win. Newcastle can obviously sell it to the fans as a win as well, right? Because they're going to be able to go out and get multiple people. And I cannot wait to see who the hell they're going to go after in January. It's going to be somebody big. I don't know who they're going to be able to talk into it. They are going to try to talk somebody into it. They are going to make a lot of phone calls. Everybody, every world-class player in the world almost is going to get a phone call from Newcastle. Hey, do you want to be the face of the project? Hey, do you want to be a face of the project? Hey, do you want to be a face of the project? Oh, by the way, unrelated to your contract, we're going to give you like an entire city in Saudi Arabia or whatever else they're going to be able to offer under the table, right? They're going to make all of those calls. And they're going to get somebody, and it's going to be because they were willing to swallow their pride with Isac. Just surprised. I saw this pop up on my phone when I was out of town this weekend, and I couldn't really believe they actually got it done. I couldn't believe it.